Welcome to the Octopod. I'm Kyle Davis, head of the Office of the CTO. Join us as we dive into the latest technologies and trends shaping business. Whether you're a tech enthusiast, a business leader, or just looking to stay ahead in the digital age, this podcast is for you. Let's unlock opportunities with technology together. Let's jump in.
Part 2 of our special edition where we're joined by industry experts in the retail sector talking about the trends that are going to impact retail. So I'm excited to be joined by the panel here. So David, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Rob. My name's David Dobson. I'm the Global Industry Director for Retail at Intel Corporation.
Excellent.
I'm Peter Critchley. I'm the UK CEO for Trison, and we digitise the physical spaces for retailers across the globe.
I'm Jane Liston. I head up our retail vertical at CDW and run our retail sales team.
Excellent. Thanks, everyone. So for those listening, hopefully you joined in for part 1 where we talked about the sustainability impact on retail, and hopefully you'll join us for part 3 where we talk about shrinkage. But in this part, we're talking about security. That topic that is probably top of mind of most organisations at the moment. But Jane, let's start with yourself. What are your thoughts in this area as an opening remark?
I think it's really interesting. Security has obviously always been key, but right now it feels so relevant that the market has changed so much. These recent cyber attacks on big name retailers having really sort of devastating impact, and so many within such a short space shows how kind of organised these cyber attacks are getting. And I think how difficult it is for retailers where they've got so many different endpoints to protect, so many different environments. How do you protect all of that and manage it and keep it updated while the hackers are just getting smarter and smarter and more aggressive with everything they're doing?
And I think that's a really key thing that we're going to make sure we circle back on at the end of this, is actually what is something tangible retail organisations can do in the face of this threat. But I think before we get to that, David, it'd be good to see, what are you seeing from your perspective? It's such a global view you potentially have to pull on from Intel.
Yeah, I agree with Jane, actually. I think that there's some news stories at the moment that kind of bring it to top of mind. But actually, we've been trying to talk about this for a long number of years. And actually, Intel has also been working very hard on our technology to make sure that our technology is secured, which provides that secure platform for the digital environment that retailers are trying to deploy. Now, there's kind of a double-edged sword with that deployment. One is, yes, you want the digital, you want all of this information stored digitally in your business. The second thing is having all of that information stored digitally creates new surfaces, new ways for people to potentially access that data. And so one of the reports that I really raised this to my priority late last year was from Gartner. They do their annual CIO survey, and the number one concern for those CIOs was cybersecurity and the threat of external hackers on their business.
And is that it's a question to the audience in general, but is there a big brand challenge here for retailers in this space? And what are consumers thinking? How do they feel when they see these news stories?
Reputationally, I think it's really important. It's a very, very long bridge to cross back to a happy place with a brand if you've been told that your personal details have been hacked and shared, and especially if they can't be sure what has been hacked. And I think the reliance that we have as consumers now on brands to protect our identities, in actual fact, and to not put them all in one pot is really, really important. It's working with CDW, or the brand message that you're protecting is really, really important, because it's vital that you have a key partner that can actually understand the whole vector threat that you face.
Because that's just so interesting, because that brand damage, because as an avid shopper, we've got so used to trusting the online that for me, it's about that convenience of actually, I don't want to have to put in my payment details every time. I want to be able to buy easily. But you realise that behaviour is are you safe to do so? And I think these recent attacks just do make you really think about how secure, when you're handing over your payment details, how secure is that? And, where does the brand come back from once that has happened? And, not only their impact on their revenue, but also what fines potentially they're going to be facing from that data getting out.
it's massive.
Yeah.
The regulation and the fines, potential fines are very, very large, and it's a very quick process now as well. The ombudsman is quick to make decisions, and the fines are significant.
Yeah, I think that there's the brand side, there's the regulation side, and as you rightly say, there's lots of regulation coming in to protect the consumer, which means the retailer's got to make sure that they are supportive of all those regulations. And then the third thing is loss of sales, right? I mean, in some of these examples recently, stores have had to close, people have had to stop taking, which is the nightmare for retailers. Oh my goodness, I can't take money, people can't buy things from me. Which is causing revenue drops, and that's really not where you want to be at the moment in this hyper-competitive space.
I think how they communicate that message is really important as well, especially when it's happened. How do you crisis manage these situations? And you see good and bad examples, across the industry. And what trust is there if you're being told that your information has been shared with a third party who is as yet unidentified? We don't think that your credit card details have been, but how sure are they? So I think the only way to be sure here is to engage at the beginning and make sure you have a plan, and to make sure you clearly understand how you protect your vital assets in the business, which are not just your brand, your customers' details, but the people that work in your business as well.
Yeah, it's a massive challenge, and what's been interesting for us as a technology provider is obviously security investments. Security's not cheap. Making the right decisions, it's going to underpin your business. But maybe people who haven't invested, what they've ended up paying afterwards, not only the fines that impact the loss of revenue, and then the repair and recovery from it is tenfold what the original investment would have cost. And it's always that difficult challenge with making the right investments, because if you don't protect yourself, the risk far outweighs.
100%. We frame this as three core components from a cyber resilience perspective, which is what we call visualize, withstand, and survive. And really, there's these three core pillars that we talk to customers about. That if you don't understand what you have, how can you make informed decisions on how to protect that stuff? Then you can actually make them informed decisions, and you can help your organization withstand that attack. And hopefully, if you do it in this order, you can minimize the amount of time you have to spend surviving from the attack at the output. And Jane, your point is really important here, that if you don't do all these steps, then you're going to have to pay, because they are going to get in at some point. Therefore, you're going to pay the fine, you're going to take the reputational damage, you're going to lose the sales, and then you're going to have to invest all the money you would have had to have invested in modern infrastructures and new technologies, etc., that you might as well have just done in the first place. So if we can actually change that mindset with our customers and actually help them understand how they need to approach this differently, then we have a chance of trying to break the trend. And the unfortunate trend is we're spending more money and we're having more breaches.
One of the interesting challenges that I think this brings up is, from a brand's perspective, they love to know who their customers are. They want to get their mobile phone numbers, their email addresses, and where they live, and what they like to do, and what food they like to eat in the week, etc., etc. Actually, it's important to understand what you need. So breaking back to what you're saying and thinking about what data do you actually need from your customers, and then using only that which you need. So if you're providing digital touch points in a retail space, if you're doing EPOS systems or kiosks, or you're providing a personalized shopping experience, do you actually even need to have an email address? Do you need to have a phone number? Is there a way of engaging with people that protects you and them by anonymizing it in that space? And that's the best way of resisting.
And you can still have the data that gives you the sentiment, or gives you the shopping behavior, or gives you the trend, but does it have to be personally identified? Do you care that it's Bob, Fred, or Jane?
Got it.
Or actually, do you just care that it was female person 1, male person 1, male person 2? Because at the end of the day, that's going to give you the value you want as a business without you storing stuff that could potentially lead to embarrassment down the line.
And let's face it, it's a blocker to a sale in any case. How many people actually really enjoy typing in their email address or whatever? So I think there are inventive ways of doing this. There are ways of engaging with a mobile device using sessions where it's non-personal, but we know that it was me last time and it's me now, but you don't know who I am. You just know that I had this experience when I was here last. And I think that by being intelligent about these things and not being too greedy about the data, I think we can protect ourselves from the very get-go.
And I think you've got a brand piece there as well, because there's nothing more frustrating for me. You go to an online retail store somewhere and you are forced to create an account. Yeah, I'm going to come to your store once. I want to check out as a guest, please. But no, I've got to create an account. I've got to create a password. You've got to grab it. It's like, why are you forcing me to do this? All you're doing is actually putting me off coming back. And there's many times where I personally have then gone, you know what, I'll find somewhere else to buy that thing because I don't want to create an account with you for that one-off instance. And that's not great for the overall brand.
You raised something really interesting there. I think it's something that's not a one and done issue, security, right? You can't secure your business and say, right, we're done now, we're secure, we don't need to do anything. Yeah, exactly. It's an ongoing challenge. And one of the reasons is retail is continual innovation space. So we are launching new services, we are adding new things, we are talking to our customers in different ways. And that sometimes creates unforeseen access spaces. So it's something that you have to have at the heart of everything that you do. Every process that you change, every process that you look at, you got to think about security. And that's how we do it at Intel. That's how we think about the business. But I also love exactly what you said, Peter. Don't store stuff that you don't need to store, because that's the best way to be secure. If you don't have that information at all, no one can access it. So make sure you really need that data that you're storing. Make sure you're really using it, and then make sure it's secured.
And I think David touching on around that digital touch point as well, it's not forgetting weaknesses. So Peter, you mentioned earlier about how from, say, a content perspective, sometimes how easy it is to actually, say, control the signage in a store, because that's not being locked down. With a simple USB, you can get, and we've seen examples of that, quite offensive messaging out there, quite disruptive behaviour with a very simple, it's not complex, it's not a cyber attack, it's just we've got USB ports open on our screens, we can connect. So it's that security journey and not discounting, what human behaviour is as well, which is probably the most difficult to control in all of this.
I was just going to say on that, the human bit is probably the weakest.
Yeah.
It's the number one failure element. You could two-factor authenticate, you could pass key the entries, you could enable all the security you like. But if you have a disgruntled employee who's walking away that day and has access to a digital signage network and wants to put something on it, they have access and they can do it. So being able to quickly suspend accounts, being able to have rules in place that moderate content automatically, whether it's using AI or other systems, is really important. And brand reputation isn't just what comes through your email inbox, it's what you see in the store, it's the messaging that people put out there. And there are some really, really horrific examples. It is very, very rare, but it does happen. But I honestly think that the biggest risk factor is people and, as you say, open ports on the backs of screens.
Excellent. Thank you, Peter. That's a great sort of closing summary from yourself. I think it'll be great just to get everyone's thoughts on what is that top tip we think our customers need to go away and do. And I'll start while you guys think here. And for me, it's going to be about them basics. Yeah. So thinking about, account access, thinking about vulnerability management, thinking about that defense in depth capability, but also thinking about going back to the roots of where these vulnerabilities come from. Can you change your procurement activities? Yeah. Can you change your refresh cycles? Can you change your development practices so that you don't bring these threats into your environment in the first place, and you're managing risk out over time? And that is it's a mindset change, and it has to be a end-to-end business mentality. Yeah, it can't be it's a security team's problem. It's everybody's problem. And the best example I've got of this is in our warehouse in Rugby. When you walk in through all the secure gates, etc., the first thing you're presented with is a mirror. And it says on the top of it, this is the person responsible for safety. And that is the same story for security across the entire organization. Everyone has to take responsibility for their part in the overall posture of the organization.
Yeah, I think one thing I would add, we've talked a lot about what I would call front end. How do you think about your systems before you implement them? How do you look at the interfaces between those systems and people? But there's also kind of a back end and a technology dimension to this. And I think, we use and we help a lot of people use AI, so use technology to defeat some of these technology hacks. And I think there's a real smart way of using artificial intelligence to start to uncover some of those new ways that people have of accessing your systems. And so that's, once the system's installed, how do you make sure that it stays safe and it stays secure? And I think this technology has a role to play on the back end side of this.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Jane, what are your closing thoughts?
For me, I think it's just security must underpin everything you do. So anytime, any solution, that has got to be a foundation. It's not a nice to have. It's not a part. You think, actually, you know what? We can get away with this product. It's 50% cheaper because you're going to end up paying for that in the future. So really about kind of working with us to understand your risk, having it to underpin anything you do, and that constant involvement and checking in of like, what's coming next? Where are we? Like you say, it can't just be a once, shut the gate, we're done. We've got to keep evolving and keep pace with how technology and the darker sides of the market are impacting security.
No, that's great. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thank you, everyone, for listening. I've been Rob Sims, Chief Technologist for CDW.
And David Dobson, Global Industry Director for Retail at Intel.
Peter Critchley, UK CEO for Trison.
And Jane Liston, Retail Sales Manager.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode. Be sure to check out the back catalogue for more great insights. Don't forget to subscribe via your favourite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. We appreciate your support. And if you have a topic you want us to cover, feel free to reach out. Catch you next time.